and I hope she convinced you that Microsoft Learn modules is indeed one of the great ways to do it. Let me introduce myself. I am Dimitri Soshnikov. I work at Microsoft, and I was one of the authors of this module. And we have the great panel of speakers here, and I think I will let them introduce themselves. And while you are introducing themselves, can you please also tell us like how you started your not career, but how you started learning deep learning yourself? What was your first experience? Let's start with Amir. Amir, you are on mute.
The usual mistake. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Amir Pourabdollah. I am from Nottingham Trent University in the UK, and I run the course of artificial intelligence here for undergraduate and postgraduate students. So I'm very happy to be here. So in terms of the deep learning, I can just tell you that this has been one of the exciting parts of my module when I teach to the students. So when we come to the deep learning, they can see actually the real practical value of neural networks and convolutional neural networks. So for example, things like the similarity of that to how we process images in our brain, or when it comes to deep fake or deep dream, or also generative adversarial networks when we see some artworks made by computers. All of these are some exciting parts for my students. Thank you.
Thank you, Amir. Who wants to be next?
Okay, so I will start. So my introduction was already given before when I started the session. So how I came to deep learning is that I would first like to thank Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador community. It was because of Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador community that my interest in AI and machine learning ignited. So before I became Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador, we have so many different paths like game development, web development, etc. So I was very confused, like which path should I choose? But once I became the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador, we had to choose a league. So it was compulsory for us to choose the league. And because of that, I chose AI and machine learning league. And then we had to complete the learning paths in Microsoft Learn. So I did that. And because of that, when I started learning, I'm like, okay, wait, it's very interesting, this AI and machine learning. And after that, I decided that I'm going to pursue my career in AI and machine learning. And then I started taking workshops for other students. Whatever I used to learn from Microsoft Learn, I used to give workshops. And then deep learning also, what had happened a few months back, I had got a scholarship from a very famous platform. And in that scholarship, we had a course which was Introduction to Deep Learning. So I completed that and I came to know about deep learning. Then from Microsoft Learn, I did PyTorch fundamentals. So before that, I only used to know the theory part of the deep learning. But after combining these two courses, I came to know a lot about deep learning.
Thank you. Syed, what about you?
Yeah. So hey everyone, this is Syed Farhan from Bangalore, India. So I'm currently a quantum computing research intern at University of California, Los Angeles. And my area of research is a mixture of artificial intelligence and quantum computing. So I'm also a fourth year undergrad student from Bangalore. And I got started off with artificial intelligence back in 2018 when I joined university. And I came to know about the Microsoft Student Partner Program. That's what it was called back then. Now it's the Learn Student Ambassadors Program. And it was pretty interesting to see the entire community coming together, teaching artificial intelligence, coming together, having workshops. And that's when, again, my interest in AI sparked up. And I also took up a course in my university on machine learning and artificial intelligence. And then I started working on several projects. And that's how I landed several internships at JP Morgan Chase and also at University of California, Los Angeles. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Rashid?
Sure. Hi, I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much, Dimitri, for having me over. I'm Rashid, a Gold Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador from India. I'm also a high school student and a 3-time TED speaker. I particularly love working with researching about machine learning, especially computer vision. And that's what I'm fascinated by the most. And I also try to share my knowledge with the community, and I mentor at the TensorFlow user group in my city. And I'm also quite interested in machine learning research. I've published quite a few papers on machine learning and maths, mostly about computer vision pertaining to my interests. And I also love hackathons and competitions. And I've also represented my country in some and won some on the international stage as well. Um, and finally, I also love open source, and you can find me contributing to some open source projects I love. About how I got started into machine learning, my story was I was pretty interested in maths since a young age. And somewhere along the line, I found something as simple as I tried to explore something as simple as the raw gradient descent. And I could see it very well corroborating with what I had learned in my class. In my class, I was learning all about applications of derivatives and how you can find minima and maxima. And the very standard gradient descent was just a method to do so. So that kind of sparked my interest in machine learning in the start. And I also watched a nice podcast by Ian Goodfellow. I'm sure his research is read by most of us over here. That's how I started off in machine learning. And then I formally took up courses by Andrew Ng to learn more about machine learning. So I was pretty fascinated by how machine learning can bring novel ideas. And I started learning more about it through Microsoft Student Learn Ambassador community and contributing to open source projects. I majorly contribute to TensorFlow. I contribute to TensorFlow a lot. So started learning more about machine learning and developing a taste for it along the way.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about learning deep learning. So Microsoft Learn is the text-based course. You have the notebook, you can read content, you can execute code. That's one style of learning. But there are also a lot of courses which are video-based, like many MOOC platforms like Coursera. They show videos like lectures. And how would you compare that? I mean, which one do you find more comfortable? Which one do you prefer? I think Anam or Rishit, you can give some feedback on this.
Yes. So I had an opportunity to learn deep learning from Microsoft Learn Learning Path and from another popular platform. So in Microsoft Learn, learning is much more text-based, whereas in other platform learning, it has more videos. So I would like to say that I like text-based learning much better. So why I like text-based learning better is because at times, you might already be knowing a particular topic, but you may not be knowing parts of that particular topic. So in video-based learning, you have to go through the entire video to find out which part you want to learn and which part you have to skip. So that takes time. But in text-based, what happens is that you can directly go to that topic which you want to learn and can skip all those topics that you already know. So it's much easier and faster. Also, at times, suppose you want to quickly refer, like, okay, I just want to go through this topic. So in video-based, you have to, again, check where the topic is starting, then where the topic is ending. But in text-based, you can just directly go to that topic. It's like you don't have to go through each unit or each topic. You can just go directly to that topic, and then that makes it quite faster and easier. Also, in a video based, there might be sometimes speakers whose accent might not be that easy to understand. So in text based learning, you don't have to take that worry that whether you're going to understand what they're going to speak or not. You can just read it yourself and understand that by yourself. And also one very good thing about Microsoft Learn is that when I did the another course, I could not find the runnable notebooks. So for that, I had to again, download PyTorch in my own laptop, then Anaconda and all those things. So that was kind of complicated and not that easy. But with Microsoft Learn, you have runnable notebooks. So you can just run then and there. You don't have to download anything in your laptop. So yeah, this was a very big advantages of Microsoft Learn.
Great. Go ahead.
I couldn't agree more with the points put forward by Ahmad. I might be a bit biased towards video form of content just because I started learning a lot about machine learning through the graduate courses by MIT and Stanford. You can just go on to MIT's OpenCourseware and find real lectures given by at MIT or Stanford and other such universities. So often it happens that for some math concepts, you need someone to explain it. It might be really great to have someone draw it up or write it right in front of you. So in some cases, when you are learning more of theory-based stuff, it might be really good to have some videos on your side too. But in any case, I think doing your own work, running your own notebook, trying to edit the code, all of that is super important, even with video-based or text-based, both kind of content.
Thank you. You actually made an excellent point that for a theoretical kind of course, you need a person telling you something. So video-based learning is good. But if you know some basics, you want to catch up on technology, then text-based is much faster. I wonder, like, how does this work in academia? Can Microsoft Learn course, for example, be used in teaching together with the lectures from real people and real professors? So Amir, please share your thoughts on that, because you probably have some experience.
Okay, thanks very much, Dimitri. Yes, the point raised by students are quite correct. Actually, everybody has his or her own learning style. Basically, it's quite subjective issue here. We can't say which one works better for each individual. So in academia, we try to have a mix of all the resources and do something in between that people can benefit according to their own learning style, and signpost the students to more resources, either videos or text, to go and watch or learn from on their own time. For example, in my cases, I usually start from the text-based style of learning or teaching, and then signpost a student to have some more videos. Perhaps I show them some short videos in the class, but not the detailed videos. I give them direction to do that. My teaching style is a kind of mix between the coding and concepts. So I prefer to have mini code and mini concept or mini lectures in between each other. So for example, if you look at the website of PyTorch, is a code first approach, but perhaps in other websites we have a theory first approach. So I prefer to have a combination of them. So that's quite matched to the way that Microsoft Learn recently is doing or is providing their materials. So for example, the example of the having embedded notebook within a PyTorch learning environment is a good example. So people can have a quick look at the theory, and at the same time they can practice it on their notebook. So for me, it is a quite efficient way of teaching and learning experience. So yes, so my approach is basically to give all options, but and try to give the enough resource materials to the users, to the students. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually want to take the opportunity to thank Syed and Rashid, who had a chance to review the PyTorch learning pad before it was released to the public. Can you maybe share like your experience? What are your thoughts about the content? Is it something that really needed by students, or we need to do some more?
Yeah, sure.
So
love to talk about it. Yep. So I'd like to say thanks, Dimitri, for giving us access to the course before it was released so that we could give some positive feedback. So the moment I had a look at code cells, which can be run directly along with the tutorials, it was pretty much fascinating initially. That was a initial overview. And then the moment we have GPU support right in the browser for free, which anyone can try, is also something really interesting to note. Talking about specific modules, in this case, I'd like to talk about a module on basically capturing patterns with recurrent neural networks. That was pretty interesting. LSTMs were introduced. They were spoken about. The math background was given about it. There's pictorial representations. And then there's Jupyter Cells, where you can try out stuff, which was pretty interesting, right? Then another module which caught my attention was basically the audio transforms and visualizations as part of the final learning module, which is learning path, which is available. So the reason why it caught my attention was I'm working on a similar project of basically working with spectrograms, MFCC values, basically working with audio data, transforming it into the frequency domain, doing machine learning stuff, and pretty much use it for classification, use it for clustering, etc. But this module introduced spectrograms from the beginning, the way audio signals are represented, the way you can convert that audio signal, extract values out of it, which can pass into a neural network, in this case, a normal neural network, or it can pass through a complicated neural network, which was pretty good, I would say. So it's very exciting stuff indeed. If you guys haven't tried it out, you should definitely give it a try. I'm sure you're going to love it. Thanks.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you don't often find a lot of materials on audio, because like images and text is something that you have a lot of tutorials about, and audio is somehow left behind. So I agree that's a good part.
Yes.
We have the great question from somebody from our audience. Marek asks, can I learn machine learning or deep learning without study? And I would rephrase it maybe and add a little bit, not without study, but maybe without learning a lot of theoretical background in math. Like, is it possible to master deep learning or machine learning, let's say, just by maybe doing some, learning some software things? What do you think?
Yeah, okay. I can totally relate to this question. When I started off with machine learning, I was like, oh, the math is so difficult. Should I go through the entire theory, or should I just directly jump into how to create a neural network, right? Because TensorFlow, PyTorch, these libraries, these frameworks allow you to just write some pieces of code, and then you don't have to know about the mathematical background to a great extent, right? So what I did instead, I started off with Azure Machine Learning Studio, which basically is drag and drop stuff. You drag and drop the type of network you want, the type of data pre-processing you want. And from there, I got some intuition of how machine learning works, and then moved into the theoretical side of it. So to answer your question, yes, it's possible to learn machine learning. I mean, there are a lot of business-oriented people who are going through tutorials which do not involve a lot of math. So it's definitely possible to work with data, pre-process it, do some machine learning stuff, and then get results, classification or clustering results. But if you want to move into research, if you want to actually understand what's happening inside, then you will need to learn the theory behind it. I mean, that's pretty much from my experience.
I could probably add on to something that Syed already said. Really great points. Thanks for sharing those, Syed. And I feel this too, that if you don't know a lot of maths, you can still learn about practical machine learning. But I would rephrase it to say you probably do not need all of the maths. So you probably don't need to know how to do integrals under signs for working with classification. A lot of that is abstracted away from you. But what I would say is, if you're working with practical machine learning, I've often found it really helpful to know if I'm working with a new algorithm, which I just want to try out. I've often found it really helpful to know a bit of maths, which is super helpful in case I want to customize the algorithm, or probably do some pre-processing or some post-processing after the outputs to help me put it on my data. So I'd rephrase this to say not all of the math would be required if you want to go into practical machine learning, but it's really, really helpful to know quite some of the math. And if you're going into research, I'm pretty excited about machine learning research myself. In that case, I think math is a part of machine learning that excites me the most. So yeah, if you're going into research, I think maths would be super important.
And one more point, if you are going to implement some cutting edge, like in machine learning and AI, you probably would need to be reading scientific papers on that, and that you cannot do without math. So yeah, it's a wide spectrum, and you can do without math, but on the cutting edge, you need some math. Amir, any comments from you?
Yes, I agree. Yes, it depends on how how deep you are going to work with this. Is it just a kind of shallow in deploying some machine learning or training model, or if you want to do for some advanced technology or cutting edge? So if people are really struggling to start with the math, perhaps one solution could be is to start programming and to start do practical things. When they see something is missing, and when they see that something is basically making problem for them to go forward, perhaps they can come back and review only those mathematical subjects which are necessary to go forward. Otherwise, as Rashid said, not everything might be needed by everybody from the math perspective.
Yeah, one more question that we have is what are prerequisites for learning deep learning? Like what you need to know to start?
From the mathematics?
I think that's pretty broad, like what you need to do to start.
Well, I think some basic knowledge of machine learning and data analytics would be necessary. Then we need to have some basic understanding about the neural networks starting from perceptron and going to some multi-layers. And then when we talk about the convolutional neural network, then we basically make a specific type of multi-layer perceptron to satisfy a specific job for image or audio classification. So yes, it may need some basic knowledge of data and data analytics, what is machine learning, and some basic knowledge of neural networks.
And also, sorry, yeah, also a lot of code.
Dimitri might have a better advice on this.
No, I just wanted to mention that a lot of code is also written in Python, so you should probably understand like basic Python. And yes, apart from that, yeah, it shouldn't discourage you from starting, definitely. Yes. And one more question that we have is machine learning better than web development for beginners? That's an interesting question. What do you think?
It depends on what is the direction of the job or career or ambitions that the person has. So each one of these may lead to a different or basically separate parts of services, basically.
I wonder. Yeah, I think let's go and hear what other participants think. Like, what do you think, Anam? Web development or machine learning?
So what I felt like starting, as I said before, Microsoft launched an ambassador, I was like, I should go for web development. So in my initial college years, I had done web development, but like I had just started the basic of web development. But then if I feel like, but then after Microsoft launched an ambassador, then I saw like, I was really interested how these things works, like how computer vision, where, you're just placing your mobile and then you can, the mobile is like, okay, it's identifying the different images, right? And then you have natural language processing where, this Siri and Alexa and all these Cortana, they all use natural language processing. So then from web development, I was like, no, I should go for this because that was much more interesting for me. But then it actually, as Sir said before, Amir Sir said, like, it depends upon you, what career you want to choose. But for me, as I said, I jumped from web development to machine learning.
Yes.
Yeah, I think web development is not likely to excite you very much because web development is very traditional. You just do websites. In AI, you are doing cutting edge. As Amir mentioned, computers, they start to produce pictures. They can write music. They can write texts. And that is really amazing. So it's like the barriers, there is no limit to what you can do. And that is, I think, really fascinating. But it also requires kind of more constant learning, like keeping up to date with your knowledge and so on.
Yes, I can also add that why not mixing these two together? So they might have some kind of web development which are empowered by artificial intelligence backend. So think about mixing them together. Don't draw a border.
Yeah, there is one question. How can we start a startup in the field of ML? So I guess in general, like ML is probably will open you more thoughts for original ideas. Like in startups. So anyone has a comment on ML startups, how to start? Okay, so I think you should start with the idea, right? So it's not fair to ask us how to start a startup, because if we had the great idea, we would have done that ourselves.
Yeah. So machine learning is just a means of achieving your goals. So first of all, draw your goal, understand what you are going to achieve, and then perhaps web development, machine learning, AI, other technologies are going to help you to achieve your goal. They are not themselves goals.
Right, and we have also in the comments somebody saying that linear algebra is important as a prerequisite for deep learning, which is, yeah, absolutely correct, because we need to know how to multiply matrices. And I think we forgot to mention that, because like it's probably very natural for us to know that, but indeed not everybody does. So yeah, the final question, Gupta is asking how to convert from existing applications to AI. Are there any tools that can be used in existing applications? So maybe yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So I could probably give you a rough answer for this. There's no one correct answer, and I think there are a plethora of tools. The first thing being, you need to identify what kind of problem you want to work with. Then you can probably use cognitive services or custom vision, or probably there are so many wonderful machine learning APIs out there. If you have a general kind of use case you want to work on, if you want to do probably something, if you probably want to do something more customized, you might want to develop your own model or fine tune an existing model. So there's a plethora of tools available. If you want to create your own models, you have a large number of frameworks. And on Microsoft Learn, you can also see modules about PyTorch and TensorFlow and start working with those. If you want to make use or if you want to fine tune an existing model, not make one from the ground up, probably use researchers' work who have built models on millions of images and trained for days. You can still do that with all of these machine learning frameworks, and actually fine tuning is also there on the Microsoft.
Thank you, Rishit, and I want to thank all the participants of this panel. We are running out of time, so any other questions we can try to answer in the chat. So thanks again for taking part in this, and let's see next talk in the conference. I will pass it back to Simon or